Danny DeVito just turned 80. For most of his life, he's been the guy who made audiences laugh without ever needing to be tall, handsome, or conventional. But behind the wisecracks and the wild comic energy, DeVito has quietly carried a body that never stopped fighting him, a career that almost didn't happen, and a marriage that ended in a way that doesn't fit the Hollywood divorce script at all. This is the real story of how Danny DeVito got here, and what his life actually looks like now that he's 80. Daniel Michael DeVito Jr. was born on November 17, 1944, at what was then Raleigh-Fitkin-Paul Morgan Memorial Hospital in Neptune Township, New Jersey. He was the youngest of 3 children and the only son, raised in a tight-knit Italian-American Catholic family with roots tracing back to San Feel in the Basilicata region of Italy. His father, Daniel Sr., ran a string of small businesses over the years, among them a dry cleaner, a luncheonette, and a pool hall. His mother, Julia, kept the household together. The family eventually settled in Asbury Park, the seaside town DeVito would later describe as one of the best places in the world to grow up, even with everything else going on around him. What made DeVito's childhood genuinely difficult wasn't poverty or family dysfunction in the dramatic tabloid sense. It was his body. DeVito has multiple epiphyseal dysplasia, sometimes called Fairbanks disease, a rare genetic disorder that disrupts normal bone growth. It's the reason he stands at 4 feet 10 inches tall, and it made him a target. He's spoken about being bullied by other kids in the neighborhood because of his height, and about the ordinary teenage humiliations that came with being so much smaller than everyone else. Not being able to slow dance the way he wanted to, always being seen as the odd one out. He said the bullying was real, but so was the loyalty of the friends who looked out for him. That combination, real hardship met with real support, shaped how he moved through the rest of his life. By the time he was 14, DeVito had convinced his father to send him to boarding school, partly, in his own words, to keep him out of trouble. He enrolled at Oratory Preparatory School in Summit, New Jersey, and graduated in 1962. It was there that he got his first real taste of performing, appearing in school stage productions. Nobody around him, least of all DeVito himself, thought that was the start of an acting career. At the time, it barely registered as anything more than a school activity. After boarding school, DeVito didn't head straight for Hollywood. He went to work as a beautician at his sister's hair salon in New Jersey, training seriously enough to build real technical skill. In one of the stranger footnotes of his biography, when a client of the salon passed away, her family asked DeVito to style her hair for the funeral. And for a stretch of time, he picked up part-time work as a morgue cosmetologist, doing hair for the deceased. It's a detail that sounds almost too strange to be true, but it's well documented, and it says something about the unglamorous, hands-on path DeVito took before anyone in entertainment knew his name. After about a year and a half at the salon, DeVito decided to move into the more lucrative side of the beauty industry and applied to take makeup classes at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. The school required every applicant, regardless of program, to perform a monologue as part of admission. DeVito did his monologue, the feedback was good, and almost on a whim he decided to enroll in acting classes as well as makeup classes. That decision changed the entire trajectory of his life. He graduated from the Academy in 1966 and went on to work at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center in Waterford, Connecticut, performing with the Colonnades Theater Lab. It was there that he met a fellow young actor named Michael Douglas, a friendship that would end up maturing more than either of them could have guessed. DeVito's path into professional acting was slow and unglamorous. He spent years working off-Broadway in small productions, including plays like Shoot Anything with Hair That Moves and The Man with the Flower in His Mouth in 1969, often alongside a young actress named Rhea Perlman, whom he'd met and grown close to during this period. Steady, well-paying work did not come easily. DeVito was short, unconventional-looking by Hollywood standards of the time, and had no interest in changing that. For years, that combination meant a lot of doors stayed closed. The turning point came in 1971, when DeVito landed the role of Martini in an off-Broadway staging of Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It wasn't a lead role, and it didn't make him famous. but it planted a seed that would take 4 years to fully grow. In the meantime, DeVito kept working, kept auditioning, and kept building a reputation in New York theater circles as a distinctive, reliable character actor, the kind of performer directors remembered even when they didn't have a part for him yet. In 1975, Michael Douglas, DeVito's old friend from Connecticut, was producing a film adaptation of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He brought DeVito back to revive his stage role as Martini. The film, directed by Milos Forman and starring Jack Nicholson, went on to sweep all 5 major Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. It remains one of only a handful of films in history to achieve that clean sweep. DeVito wasn't the star of the film and wasn't nominated for anything himself, but he was suddenly part of one of the most celebrated movies of the decade, and Hollywood took notice of a small, sharp-featured actor who'd made the most of a small role. In 1978, DeVito auditioned for a new television sitcom called Taxi. According to accounts of the audition, before he even started reading, DeVito reportedly threw the script down on the table and bluntly asked who had written it, a move that could have ended the audition on the spot, but instead signaled exactly the kind of fearless energy the producers were looking for. He was cast as Louis De Palma, the abrasive, scheming dispatcher of the fictional Sunshine Cab Company. Louis De Palma wasn't written to be likable. He was rude, manipulative, and often genuinely unpleasant, and audiences couldn't get enough of him. The role turned DeVito into a genuine television star and proved something that hadn't been obvious before. Audiences would embrace a character actor playing an unapologetically flawed character, even in a leading, scene-stealing capacity. DeVito won a Golden Globe Award and an Emmy Award for the role during Taxi's run from 1978 to 1983. It was also during this period that his relationship with Rhea Perlman deepened. The two had known each other for years through New York theater, and Perlman herself later joined the cast of Taxi. They married in 1982. Taxi didn't just make DeVito a star performer. It gave him his first real experience directing, as he took on directing duties for several episodes during the show's run. When Taxi ended in 1983, DeVito made the leap into film full-time, and it worked. He appeared in Terms of Endearment that same year, which won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. He followed it with Romancing the Stone, 1984, and its sequel, The Jewel of the Nile, 1985, both reuniting him with Michael Douglas, and with the dark comedy Ruthless People, 1986, in which he played a husband scheming against his kidnapped wife. In 1987, DeVito made his feature directorial debut with Throw Mama from the Train, in which he also starred alongside Billy Crystal. 2 years later came The War of the Roses, 1989, a bitterly funny, brutally honest film about a marriage collapsing into open warfare, a project DeVito both directed and starred in, again alongside Douglas. In 1992, he took on one of his most memorable roles, playing Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, in Tim Burton's Batman Returns, a performance that was strange, grotesque, and quietly tragic all at once. That same year, he also directed Hoffa, a serious dramatic film about labor leader Jimmy Hoffa, starring Jack Nicholson. Also in the early 1990s, DeVito co-founded Jersey Films with producer Michael Schamberg, later bringing on Stacey Sher as an equal partner. The company became one of the most influential independent production outfits of the era. Jersey Films produced Pulp Fiction in 1994, a film that helped redefine independent cinema and turned Quentin Tarantino into a household name. The company went on to produce Get Shorty, 1995, Gattaca, 1997, Garden State, 2004, and Freedom Writers, 2007, among others. DeVito also received a Best Picture Oscar nomination as one of the producers of Erin Brockovich, 2000, starring Julia Roberts. Beyond film, Jersey Television produced the Comedy Central series Reno 911. DeVito's eye for scripts and talent made Jersey Films a genuine creative force, not just a vanity project attached to a famous name. In 1996, DeVito directed and starred in Matilda, an adaptation of Roald Dahl's novel, playing the girl's neglectful father, Harry Wormwood, opposite his real-life wife, Rhea Perlman, who played her mother. In 1999, he produced and co-starred in Man on the Moon, a biographical film about his former Taxi castmate Andy Kaufman, with Jim Carrey delivering an acclaimed performance in the title role. The film was well-reviewed but underperformed commercially, a reminder that even with a strong track record, not every passion project pays off financially. This is where DeVito's story turns genuinely difficult, and it isn't about scandal or tabloid drama. It's about his body. Multiple epiphyseal dysplasia doesn't just determine height. Medically, it affects the cartilage and joints throughout the body, and it's associated with early-onset arthritis and chronic joint pain that tends to worsen with age. DeVito has lived with this his entire life, through decades of physically demanding acting work, stunts, and long shooting schedules. It's a real, documented condition, not an exaggerated plot point, and it means that the physical toll of his career has likely been heavier on him than it would be on almost anyone else in the business. At 80, that reality doesn't go away. Chronic joint pain and arthritis linked to a lifelong bone disorder are not things a person recovers from. They're something a person manages day after day for the rest of their life. DeVito has continued acting well into his late 70s, including his long-running role as Frank Reynolds on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a physically chaotic role that regularly calls for pratfalls and stunt work. Whatever the visible energy on screen, the underlying medical condition is a real, lifelong burden that doesn't show up in a highlight reel. DeVito joined It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in its second season in 2006, playing Frank Reynolds, the morally bankrupt, scheming father figure to the show's core group of friends. At the time, the show was a small cult comedy struggling to find its footing, and DeVito's arrival is widely credited with helping raise its profile and giving it new comedic energy. Nearly 2 decades later, DeVito is still playing Frank, making it one of the longest-running roles of his career and introducing him to generations of viewers who may never have seen Taxi or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at all. Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman married in 1982 after meeting years earlier through New York theater circles. For decades, they were considered one of Hollywood's most solid, low-drama couples, working together repeatedly on screen, in Matilda, and in various other projects across their careers, while raising 3 children, Lucy, Grace, and Jake. In 2012, the couple separated, a split that surprised many longtime fans given how stable their marriage had appeared publicly. They later reconciled and stayed together for several more years before separating again for good in 2017. What makes their story different from a typical Hollywood divorce is that DeVito and Perlman never actually finalized the divorce. Even after their final separation, they reportedly worked out an arrangement to divide their assets without going through formal divorce proceedings, and by most accounts have remained on close, friendly terms. It's an unusual arrangement. A couple who built a life and a family together, who separated after decades, but who never fully closed the legal chapter on their marriage. Whatever the emotional weight of that arrangement, it's clearly not a conventional happy ending, and it's not a conventional bitter one either. It sits somewhere in between, which may be the most honest way to describe it. Even with the physical toll of his condition and the complicated ending of his marriage, DeVito hasn't slowed down in any dramatic way. He continues to act, direct, and produce. Jersey Films has continued developing new projects, including collaborations with his own children, Lucy and Jake, who have taken on producing roles of their own within the family business. DeVito has also continued taking on stage work later in life, making his Broadway debut in 2017 in a revival of Arthur Miller's The Price, which earned him a Tony Award nomination, and returning to Broadway again in 2023 for Teresa Rebeck's play, I Need That. DeVito has also been vocal for years about political and social causes, particularly around workers' rights and progressive politics, and has used his public profile to support various charitable causes, including organizations connected to health and the arts. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2011, recognizing his decades of work in television. If there's genuine sadness in Danny DeVito's life at 80, it isn't the manufactured kind that gets exaggerated for clicks. It's quieter and more real than that. It's a body that has fought against him since childhood and shows no signs of letting up, even now, decades into a career built partly on physical comedy. It's a marriage that lasted most of his adult life and ended twice, without either side ever making it official on paper. A strange, unresolved kind of ending for two people who spent nearly 40 years together. And it's the simple fact that turning 80 while still working, still directing, still showing up on set, means DeVito has never really gotten to stop and rest the way most people eventually do. None of that erases what he built. Few actors in Hollywood history have turned being told they didn't fit the mold into a 5-decade career spanning television, film, directing, producing, and Broadway. DeVito didn't get there by changing who he was to please anyone. He got there by refusing to, over and over again, for 60 years. That refusal is the real story behind Danny DeVito at 80. Not a scandal, not a meltdown, just a man who kept working through pain that never really left him, and who's still not done.